for me personally, writing a book, working in a restaurant, ministry, being in the gym, any chance that I get to be able to positively impact somebody and let them see the truth of who we are and the truth of who God is, I'm gonna take advantage of that opportunity. And that's all I know to do. Now, I have those tough conversations on a regular basis in a very controlled environment with very skeptical people. Even in a restaurant that kind of props up with that Christian background and beliefs, the conversations take place. Well, I don't believe that, and I don't believe this. Well, that's fine. It's okay for you not to believe that. Here's going to be the consequences of not believing that. And people get uncomfortable with that. I had migraine headaches for a solid week. I was throwing up sick. I was having withdrawal symptoms, like I was a drug addict. And then after getting through that process of those withdrawal symptoms, it was like immediate. Like there was immediate things that were changing, and I knew God was doing more. I knew He wanted me to do more. I knew that there had been words spoken over me in years past that were finally coming to fruition because I was getting to a place where I could actually receive them for the first time.
You're going to ruffle some feathers saying that, man.
I know.
I think that's how I ruffle most people's feathers, especially close to me, is to constantly be seeking that involvement and being better and better and better. And that's part of my spiritual DNA, man. But I think you're either creating or you're disintegrating. Today's guest coming all the way from Macomb
Summit.
Dude, pastor, author of a new book, personal trainer. I've seen you got a website for that.
A little bit of everything. Been around the block a few times. What's the old saying? Jack of all trades, but master of none.
Yeah.
So I do a little bit of everything.
I've always said that about myself. I've often wondered if that's almost like a curse, bro. When you're good at everything, but you don't feel great at nothing.
Not great at anything, yeah.
But you're also like a team director at Chicken Filet.
Yeah, I'm one of those too. Do a little bit of the talent training, the fancy HR director role at Chick-fil-A Macomb. We've done some really good things there in the couple of years we've been open. So.
I admired y'all when it snowed. I saw you had your teams out there literally while it's coming down, shoveling it out.
Doing everything possible to keep the place open, yeah.
All right. Was you out there?
No, not on that instance. That was actually...
It looked like some kids.
That was actually Mark, the owner-operator. That was actually his kids that he got them out there.
I admired it because, most
of
my team was like, dude, we ain't going to work for 4 days. It snowed.
That's what most of the rest of the team was hoping, was like, hey, it's snowing. We're not going nowhere. But we did everything we could to stay open. And it's beneficial, For those folks, they don't realize it, but without that job, you don't have a paycheck. And without a paycheck, there's a lot of things in life that gets missed. So it worked out for everybody.
Dude, I admire Chick-fil-A for being able to scale such a culture. If you ever own a business and you realize that, I know they're not all perfect, so hats off to you for being part of that, and I'm sure you are a big part of that. So your big thing out though is Reclaiming the Temple, a book you've written. I'm supposing it's inspired by personal training and taking care of this one body we got on this one lap we're running. When'd you write it?
I started working on that a little over a year ago, really back 23, towards the end of 23.
You started working on this a year ago?
Yeah, started writing.
Bro, you need to be writing books full time. This thing's thick.
Back in 23, and then it's large print. I
don't know.
I gotta see. I gotta be able to see the words. So
I'm from Mississippi, dude. It's a big book.
But I started writing it back in 23. Finished it up late last year. It took me about a year to write the whole thing, spending a few hours a day working on it. But it really was from a lot of the experiences that I've had between law enforcement and being in ministry and just a lot of the disciplinary motivation behind all that. And then my big thing was, and one of the things I'm talking a lot about now is fasting. I started a 21-day fast a few years back, and I was about 310 pounds when I did that. Terrible shape.
310 pounds.
Terrible mentality, emotional wreck.
Has anybody ever told you look like a fighter?
I've been told that I look good, but I was also told at 310.
You look good, bro.
I was told at 310 pounds that I carried it well. So I don't know who to trust when
Dude,
they
you
talk
look
about it.
mean, man. And you're like shaving your head where I'm trying to like make mine look like I got hair. I'm a little envious of that, bro. But yeah,
Yeah.
you almost look like you got cauliflower ear.
I
You
hadn't
give me
got
like a Sean Strickland
I hadn't
vibe.
gotten any of that stuff, but the only fighting I ever did was back in law enforcement training. And about the only good thing that came out of that was the dude tried to lay a haymaker on me, and I got such a hard head that he dislocated his shoulder, and the rest of the fight was moot after
If you
that. He was
dislocate
done.
your shoulder punching somebody in the head, bro, that's
It's a hard head.
yeah.
That tells you all you need to know about what the contents of that book says. A hard head like this ain't got a whole lot of brain behind it, so
Oh, you do, man.
it's a very simple read. But yeah, it was inspired by a lot of the things that I've been through, that I've seen. Going through like a law enforcement training style regiment like that, it's intentional. And a lot of our life isn't. Like, a lot of people just kind of float through life. We
Yeah, for
consume
sure.
mindlessly. We don't really take care of our temple. It's the one thing that we've been given to steward that really takes care of everything else.
I have to learn to like collar it back when I'm in public. Not to be judgmental, but I just see people that are totally unaware of what they're doing to their
Right.
body and how they're treating it. You
And
know,
it's hard. And I'm to a fault. I'm kind of a sarcastic being by nature. And so I do have to, same thing like you just said, I have to rein myself in sometimes because I want to be fruitful for somebody
right.
and it benefit them. And sometimes my mouth, like I said, it don't benefit sometimes. But
So whenever you were becoming aware of things like this in law enforcement, was it like seeing drug addicts, people answering the door that were just in pure crisis,
it
kids running wild? Like what all kind of
it
influenced you if you had a vision of that?
yeah, it was that, but really there was one incident that took place that really hit home more than anything. I was actually working part-time for a local PD in addition to my full-time with the sheriff's department. And I was getting ready to come to work. My wife and I had been to the movies. I was working a night shift. And when I came into town, there's blue lights everywhere. I'm like, well, dang, what am I coming into? And go into the PD, pick a car up, and call the dispatch center. And they're like, we've got an officer's been shot. And so I immediately go there. It's just happened. And I'm one of the ones there. They're kind of telling me what's going on. Basically, a Jackson police officer was transporting an inmate that he had arrested to the detention center. Guy was able to get out of the back seat. They wrestled in a local restaurant, that fast food restaurant that was there. They said, we heard a gunshot. We could hear somebody yelling, no, 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 don't do it. And that was it. And they saw him run off. And there's a little creek there. And like we collectively was like, he's got to be in this creek. And when we pulled him out of that creek, he's got a gunshot wound right here coming out the top, and I'm standing here pulling him out of the water. And I was like, it was one of those surreal moments that a lot of law enforcement have been in, military have been in, that you have that this could be me. And I was not where I needed to be in that moment.
So
Um,
you're saying more from a self
it was
defense.
I've got to do something because I'm not as sharp as I need to be. And it really didn't stick then either. Because the mentality was, the flight or fight response. And the only reason that I was going to fight was to save my own life. And biblically, that's not the reason to do it. The reason to do it is because I'm fighting for somebody else's life. And that connection wasn't made in that moment, but it kind of got the thing started for me. And it was back in 19 when I did an extended fast. Like, we were doing it for the church. We were seeking God for some very specific things. And I actually, at that point, was 310, lost 30 pounds in a 21-day period, but it wasn't weight loss that really benefited. It was like
Clarity.
the clarity mentally. Like, I was dealing with anxiety really bad during that time. Depression was a big deal. And I'm trying to lead a church. Like, this isn't compatible. And when
Go
I,
deeper in that, man. A lot of people don't talk about that in leadership. Whenever you're looked to and sought to have all the answers and be the pioneer, but yet some days you wake up and you just feel disconnected, maybe, or you're maybe more confused than anyone in the church.
yeah, that part of it was like, by the grace of God, we did what we did during that time. There's no doubt that God was gracious to us during the first portions of the life of the church. Church has been in existence for 10 years now. At that point, we were sitting at our sixth year. And that entire first 6 years, like, honestly, sitting here right now, I don't remember a lot of it. because there was so much that was just based on just existing. And when I say existing, like it was, you mentally can't process, you emotionally can't function, and then spiritually you're a mess. And I kind of look around now and I see some of the clarity that I currently have, and I'm like, man, I want people to get this
Right.
because I know what it's like to be where they were or where I was and where they are,
And they totally don't see it at that time.
and they don't, and you don't until you put yourself in a position where you have a discipline like that that is intended to break that stuff. And the thing that kills me most about it is like most churches, especially churches, because that's really where my heart really is in the church. Most churches don't even talk about fasting anymore. And it's like you're missing on all this. And like God put it there for a reason. Jesus even comes into the picture and he doesn't say if you fast and if you pray, he says when you fast and when you pray.
I like that.
And this is where the clarity is going to come from. And this is where that deeper connection is going to be made. And so a lot of the things that we think of, I heard a pastor say recently, and I actually used this in a message this past weekend. So I stole something from somebody.
Oh, he stole it from somebody
Yeah,
too, bro.
it's stole content stolen from other
That's right.
content. But he made it. We always want to judge the irrigation system and not the fruit. And so what he was making the point for was in a Christian standpoint is, do we read the Bible? Are we praying? Are we going to church? Are we, doing the things? And that's the irrigation system that waters the tree that ultimately produces the fruit. Well, what's the fruit? Well, the fruit is I've got love, I've got joy, I've got peace, I've got patience. There's kindness, there's goodness, and there's faithfulness being produced in my life. And a lot of that was missing. Like I was trying to produce those things without any discipline. And it's like, I can't produce love. God gave me that love. I can't produce joy. I can't make joy. I can look happy, but I can't make myself be joyful. And a lot of that was missed in those years for me because of all the cloudiness of mind and just the physical weight that I carried, And I mean, coming out of that, it was almost immediate. Like the first 2 weeks of that initial fast, because of where I was, I had migraine headaches for a solid week. I was throwing up sick. I was having withdrawal symptoms, like I was a drug addict. And then after getting through that process of those withdrawal symptoms, it was like immediate. Like there was immediate things that were changing, and I knew God was doing more. I knew He wanted me to do more. I knew that there had been words spoken over me in years past that were finally coming to fruition because I was getting to a place where I could actually receive them for the first time. And that kind of changed everything. And then it still was on hold because I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Like I know I'm supposed to love my church, and I can do that now. I can actually lead this group of people. But what do you want me to do beyond that? Because I know the message that I'd been given. I know the calling that was on my life, and I know that there's a lot more to this than what meets the eye. And I know I'm not special. I'm just another dude, just like anybody else. That when God calls and you listen and you submit and you give yourself fully to that, man, He responds to that in major ways, and He's proven faithful to all of that ever since that point. That's been 6 years ago now. So
That's cool, dude. Like some of the stuff you were talking about, like love, joy, peace, or fruits of the spirit. Do you think that's stuff that we just gotta be? And most people are waiting for like a cause and effect. Well, when this happens, then I'll be patient, or when this happens, I'll be happy and joyful, instead of like causing that right there in that moment and choosing to be joyful.
it
And it's a constant battle. We
yeah,
all know. I
yeah.
mean, you gotta.
It becomes that. I had somebody that spoke into me years ago that made a statement about that. He said these are fruits of the Spirit. So if you have the Spirit, they're there.
They're there.
Now, are they going to be suppressed by the flesh on a regular basis? Oh yeah, we're going to fight that because there's times where people hurt us, and our natural inclination is if I'm hurt, I'm gonna hurt.
Well, I think it just comes down to like you got to exercise them if you want them.
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, you can look at farming, exercising to better your body. I mean, everything is set up in the same order, and it's so simple, but we miss it and complicate it. Whenever it's just, dude, you got to exercise. Like we all got great memories if we would exercise our memory, but
Yep.
we don't. We say, man, I got a seventh grade level memory. I can't remember anything. Well, You're
And you
not
never, yeah,
exercising
and
it.
you never will as long as you keep having that mentality like you're
Exactly.
talking about. You limit yourself based on that, and God's given us the ability to be limitless in this life, and we think that there's so many limitations that we have, and then we put even more self-imposed limitations on that as well.
And then you said you're not special, man. I know you don't mean it like that, but I think that's something that we could change the perspective and say everybody's special.
Yeah, yeah,
Dude,
you're
we're
right. You're right.
such God's highest form of creation, and then we think we're nothing. And like you said, we're scarcity. We barely get by with what
Yeah,
we do. And like,
yeah, you're right.
man, our God's abundant, man.
You're
You
right.
know, and we don't need abundance to boast, but it's like, dude, we need a little abundance to sit here and talk at the table today and
Yeah,
get your word out. I had no idea. When I met you the first time in the gym, I didn't know you had all this. I dang sure didn't know you'd written a book, man.
yep.
So, like earlier, you said whenever you were pulling the police officer out of the water, I didn't realize you were like in the Jackson area. So, were you like a Jackson police officer or
I work with Hines County, so we were more of the rural areas, but we had a lot of dealings with the city as well.
dude?
Um,
Jackson's wild, man. I don't
and
know if
it's
people
yeah,
understand.
it's been like that for a long time. Back then it was I started my career there started more out of necessity than anything else. My wife and I just got married. I'm between ministry and trying to go to seminary, and there's no job. So I'm like, I got to do something. My dad was he was a patrol deputy for 30 years with Hines County. And he was working patrol then. My uncle was captain over communications and 911 dispatch, and they had openings. So I was like, I need to do something. This is an opportunity. So I jumped in and started working dispatch, and was working online, finishing a degree. And while I did that, a lot of the guys that were working night shift, the shift that I was working, were like, hey, when you gonna come out on the road with us? I'm like, I'm not. I'm trying to finish my degree so I can get back to ministry. Like this is just a stop on the radar going back into quote life. And then they ended up talking me into transferring, and then I ended up working there for 6 years. Went through Malota and Pearl law enforcement training academy there, and yeah, a lot of stuff. You see a lot of things. It's different everywhere you go. Hinds County's a pretty large county, but we still back then. I'm not sure what they do now. We all rode solo, so you're there by yourself, 565 square miles of county, and you may not have anybody show up for 30 minutes with whatever you're dealing with.
Is
And
there a lot of gang violence in like the rural areas?
yeah, I don't know what it's like now. Back then, it wasn't gang related violence. Most of the stuff that we dealt with was more of your domestic related or just criminal nonsense. You know, burglarizing houses and things of that nature. But it still, I saw a lot more than I ever thought I would. In the short amount of time that I did work there, between that and just the gross nature of, you see the gross nature of humanity in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it. It was last week in Florida where it was in Walton County where they had like a disturbance at a Goodwill store, I believe, and the officer got dispatched to it going home. So he was off duty. So he stops in, gets the guy to walk out, no confrontation. Dude, as they're walking out and they go their different ways on the sidewalk, dude turns around and freaking, I think it was 30 rounds total fired, which
Crazy.
he was able to draw his gun and kill him too. But how, like, in 30 seconds this
Crazy.
happened?
And it's not, I don't want to say funny, that's a bad word. Like most of the stuff that happened to me, my wife was with me anytime that kind of stuff would happen. Just random stuff.
Wife's
Got
an
people,
angel, bro.
yeah,
She's
people standing on the interstate shooting at cars, and you pull up and like he's as calm as can be. She's 8 months pregnant with my second child, sitting in the passenger seat watching. And as I approach him, he's got nothing in his hand, but another deputy comes flying over the hill, blue lights and siren, and he jumps back in the truck.
right,
I'm like, now, yeah, this is not going to turn out well.
right.
So you're wrestling with this guy. And then at the end of the day, like his issue, he was a diabetic, did not even remember it. His blood sugar had dropped so severely, he didn't know what he was doing. And we're sitting there wrestling. He's trying to pull a gun to shoot me over literally nothing. Yeah, so but she's always present when all that kind of stuff happened.
Isn't it crazy, man? We're all humans and we all have a flesh side, and literally like 30 seconds of a wrong decision of
can change
can change
everything.
your entire life
Can
and
change
kill
everything.
somebody innocent. I mean, not justifying it, but like, I wonder how that must feel to do a senseless act like that and then put your whole life behind bars and the people that love you suffer and the people that love them suffer. I mean, what's the greatest thing you think we could do as a society for that? I mean, you're in the ministry, you're in the working out. Do you think being spiritual, exercising that every day, exercising your body every day, I don't want to say impossible. Do you think it would almost be impossible though to stoop down to those depths if you were doing that and practicing it, exercising it every day?
I don't I'm never gonna say it's impossible. Um, but humanity is a tough nut to crack sometimes. I just know that what we've been called to do is to be an influencer of every person that I have the ability to influence. What they do with it, I can't do anything about that part. But I know for me personally, writing a book, working in a restaurant, ministry, being in the gym, any chance that I get to be able to positively impact somebody and let them see the truth of who we are and the truth of who God is, I'm gonna take advantage of that opportunity. And that's all I know to do. Now, I have those tough conversations on a regular basis in a very controlled environment with very skeptical people. Even in a restaurant that kind of props up with that Christian background and beliefs, the conversations take place. Well, I don't believe that, and I don't believe this. Well, that's fine. It's okay for you not to believe that. Here's going to be the consequences of not believing that, and people get uncomfortable with that. I think there's a line, especially with church, that we like grace, but what is grace for if I'm not showing anybody any truth? Same thing in the gym. I can give you grace to work out truth. If you're not going to work towards truth, what's the purpose of grace? I'm just enabling you to stay where you are. And I don't believe that we are the best version of ourselves in any given moment. We always are trying to get better. And in any,
You're gonna ruffle some feathers saying that,
no, I
man.
know.
I think that's how I ruffle most people's feathers, especially close to me, is to constantly be seeking that involvement and being better and better and better. And that's part of my spiritual DNA, man. And I don't judge anybody that's not doing that, but I think people have a tough time thinking like, man, is that ever exhausting? Like, but I think you're either creating or you're disintegrating.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. There's one of my favorite bands, and I don't even know if people even know who they are anymore. POD.
Hmm.
I've heard of
I knew
POD
you was gonna
before.
say that.
POD.
Yeah.
They came out with an album about a year and a half ago. A song called "I Won't Bow Down," but there's a lyric in that song: "The top of every mountain is the bottom of another." I just gotta keep moving. Like that's all I can do. I'm gonna keep climbing. If I stop climbing, I ain't going anywhere. There's
And I
there's no
think as
point in
we
it.
evolve, especially as inspiring others and leading, it's like it's all about bringing people up with you. And man, that's when it gets tough because then you realize, like, man, I'm totally in control of myself. Now I got to help people get in control of themselves and bring them with me.
Yep.
And that's where I'm at, dude. And it's tough. I never had that perspective of like, man, it's so easy. It's like being self employed or owning a big corporation. I mean, literally. So,
Still dealing with people, still trying to get the best out of people, even when they don't see it. And that's a hard part. That's the hardest part. Because sometimes, I mean, even in this conversation, like the statement I made earlier about myself, like you're still working that stuff out of yourself in a lot of ways, and you're trying
right.
to help other people work that stuff out of themselves. And it's a constant battle. But the big part of it for me is just like I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna fight that battle every day.
Well, it's just knowing it's an infinite game.
Yep.
I mean, you never make it.
Yep. And it's not it's the journey,
Right.
not the destination. I mean, I preach that on a regular basis. If you're coming to Jesus to go to heaven, you're missing the point.
Right.
That's not what we're here for. Because even heaven is hell if somehow he's not there. We're not trying to get somewhere. We're trying to take people on a journey and realize that there's a relationship aspect to this, and that's what that's about more than anything else. Is just like I want you to realize that your temple is what God's given you to primarily steward. That helps you figure all this stuff out.
I was just about to say, man, you've been using the word steward a lot. And that's one thing. I laid in bed last night. I noticed I was frustrated. So I lay there and, get metacognitive, think about my thoughts. Why am I thinking this and why am I frustrated? And a lot of it was just due to stewardship, whether it's, man, the dishes in the sink were still dirty. There's stuff on the countertops. My closets not have everything put up. My kids' toys were strode everywhere. And then, you start lacking gratitude. And my yard, if I don't mow it and, it overgrows and pine straw needs fluffing, like I'll start disliking my beautiful yard as
Yeah.
good as its landscape. But if I go out there and spend 2 hours and mow it and fluff everything up, I'll be out there just drinking coffee, staring at it for 3 hours, and to me, that's like gratitude.
Yeah.
But I don't think you just have gratitude. It's like, dude, you can create gratitude by being a good steward
Right.
of those things. And a lot of times, gratitude's a lack of boredom. Boredom's the lack of gratitude.
Yeah.
I about said that backwards, but I notice sometimes if I'm bored or hey, man, we need to go somewhere and do something. I'm like, dude, look around at what all we have. Like, I'm not grateful for what all I have, and I'm trying to go replace it
Find
with something else. So,
yeah.
I heard that quote a long time ago. I didn't originate that, but like, boredom's just the lack of gratitude. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, that's so
good.
true when you
It's
think
good.
about it.
It's good. It's
So kind of
absolutely
walk
true.
me through your book, man. We're eating up our time. I mean, how many chapters is it? You said it's an easy read.
It's an easy read. It's 10 chapters. It's partially talking about some of my journey, but it's actually going back from the original design all the way back in Genesis and kind of walking you through not just nutritionally, but how that links spiritually through feasts and festivals, through like the food that's even identified in the Bible, the way that nutrition was handled in biblical time. Because like we live in a society where everything's readily available. Even if I want something healthy, I can go get it any time of the year. They didn't have that option. So if they wanted certain types of food, it's only available in season. And so you see
Do you
that
think
kind
our
of play
bodies
out.
are designed like that?
I think so. I think that
I've talked about that on an earlier podcast. Like certain seasons, I crave certain foods, and
Yep.
lo and behold, that's when it's
that's the
producing
season that
and
it's
where I
supposed to.
live.
Yeah, exactly. I do think it's supposed to be that way. And the original intent was for us to be able to enjoy the abundance of that fully and not even have to worry about understanding that. And
Well, I mean, if people had to go out and fatten a cow and kill it or grow their own vegetables, they wouldn't be sitting on the couch
it'd be making a
or
big,
running down the street. Yeah, they'd be good stewards.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's just one way to look at that. It's like, man, they had to work for their food, and that was their economy. One guy may not be good at hunting, but this guy was good at making arrows, and well, this guy don't need no more arrows. So he's like, well, dude, I can cook.
Yep.
And then that's how they barter.
And there's a big community aspect to that as well. Just the need that people have for each other. And then, we live in that industrialized society now where the need is like provided by certain corporations and things like that. And I'm not railing against the machine or anything like that, but we still have to get back to a place where we're mindful personally about what we're doing. And then especially as the man of the household, I'm responsible for my wife and I'm responsible for my 3 kids to make sure that they recognize that same thing. Like we have to be mindful of our family, and then everybody that we have the ability to influence, we want them to be mindful of it as well.
Dude, I love that, man.
And it's just, that's that responsibility aspect. Like the church tries to make it about coming to a building and being a part of the quote church and whatever the name is on the building, but it's not that. It's the collective body, and this temple is a part of a greater temple that connects with everybody else. I mean, just the connection, like making a connection with
Right.
you, like this. We don't have a background or history together, but I know that there's a like mindedness there, and I know what God was leading me to. And I was like, this is something that could be really good for us.
Yeah, dude, I woke up one morning and I needed a podcast guest, honestly. And it was it was the same day I made a post and we got booked up, thankfully, big time. But like, I just looked at you for 2 seconds. I was like, God, he needs to be on a pod. He's wrote a book, man. Like, that's insane to me. I want to write a book. I have that desire. I don't, I haven't been led in what direction yet. I'll write a lot of books before I die. But, dude, how do you even start the process? Like, do you write it backwards? Do you write it and then figure out where it goes? And how do you remember what you've wrote and where you've left off? These are the fears, I guess, that I go through of why I wouldn't start writing a book.
I think for me, the easy part was, I don't want to say easy, but the easier part for me was I write consistently. So I'm constantly writing what we would call content Sunday mornings. I'm always putting scripture together. I'm always putting study notes together. And so it kind of was born out of that. I just started studying this topic. And so it started as just rough draft notes, scripture references, going back and researching Hebrew words, just like I would if I was preparing for a Sunday morning.
Right.
And then I realized like there's a message here, but I don't think it's supposed to be preached. And I started going through Genesis and started at the beginning, which is where chapter 1 starts. Researched how that all started back there in the garden and put all those thoughts together. And then I was like, okay, Lord, where are we going from here? And it took me into Exodus. And it's like, here's where they were so ungrateful for God bringing them out of slavery, giving them manna and quail, and they complained about it. It's like, that's our society right now.
Yeah. People
And
hadn't
so I
changed.
started going through writing that, and like, here's the modern context of it. And as I just followed those little breadcrumbs, just day by day, I looked up and I'm like, dang, all this makes sense. Like it to me, it didn't make sense in the moment because I was just writing just for the sake of writing. And then when I looked up, I told my wife one morning, I was like, I've got a book sitting in front of me, and I just need to go back and look where these things are interconnected. So it was just born out of stuff that was already here. And, at 23 years old, I mean, I'm 41 now. I knew that there was something God had put on my heart that I was going to write something, multiple somethings, but it was going to start with something. And at 23, I'm immature. I'm not thinking about none of that stuff. I'm just thinking about, life where it is right then in the moment. And then a few years later, a guy walks up. It's kind of a crazy story, but we're at a Southern Baptist revival in a church that we were serving in at the time. And this older gentleman who's never been to the church before, never seen this guy, comes in, sits in the back. My wife sees him and says, "That looks just like my grandfather." Grandfather passed away years ago, like dead. She's like, he looks just like my grandfather. She walks back there like a child, grabs him by the hand. "You got to meet my husband," and walks him down the aisle. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he stops, shakes my hand, and he says, "I've got a word for you. The Lord said that you need to be prepared in season and out, that your message is going to be heard by thousands." He walked out the door, never saw him again. And my wife started all that, and I'm like, okay. So when I sit down and start writing, I'm like, that's it right there.
That
No,
gives me chills, man, because
that
there's
that
scripture talking about being kind
yeah,
to strangers because you never know when they might be an angel.
that's exactly right. And that's it right there. So I looked at that, and then just a few years later, that happened, and I'm sitting there going, okay, Lord, what is this? I mean, years have gone by. It hasn't been, it wasn't like it immediately happened, and we went through a whole lot of different things. Personally, like we lost a child that would
Mm.
be 10 this coming September. So we actually have 4 kids. My daughter's 16, she'll be 17 this year. My oldest son is 14, will be 15 in July. We adopted our third child. He's 10, will be 11 in January. And we were pregnant when we went through that adoption process and didn't know it when we started that. And then we lost the baby, and John Parker he'd be turning 10 in September this year. And so there was some things that took place during that kind of refocused and changed. And you go through something like that, and you pretty much have two options. You can either do what everybody told Job to do, curse God and die, or you can say, okay, you're still the sustainer of all things. I don't know the reason behind this, but I know there's a purpose. There's got to be. Has he told me that? No. And I've got to be okay with that. And when even saying that kind of makes me kind of feel gross to say that, because who am I to say I'm okay with something that God does, because He's God and I'm not. Um, but all of that stuff just kind of led to this point, and when that fast hit, like that clarity just came in, and God kind of opened my eyes and said, "This is what you've been missing. This is what you haven't been loving my church like I need you to. You haven't taken care of your family the way I need you to. You haven't been taking care of yourself the way I need you to. And there's going to be more to it than that. And you're going to have to grow in it now. You're going to have to discipline yourself for a season, grow into that." And then when I sat down and started writing and started putting all those things together, and then this came out, it's like, dang, this is it. Like, this is that thing that he's been putting in front of me for the last nearly 20 years. I mean, 16 years of my life. And here it is. Now, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's written, it's published. What do I do now? Like,
I mean, you say that vaguely. Was that hard to figure out?
Oh, it was all of it was a process, and it's one of those things that I've definitely learned, especially recently, is that, and you probably know this already, those little micro goals and just having a focus and just setting a standard and saying, all right, I'm gonna write the next word. When the next word gets written, I'm gonna move on to the next word.
I'm learning that, bro. I make projects task, and then they don't go nowhere, and I'm like,
Then you get aggravated.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm
No,
like, dude, and one of my coaches said, bro, these are full projects. They're not something you go do in one day.
yeah.
But that's my wheel and my like, let's go.
And then that comes from the law enforcement background. And I actually recently found an app called Trident Mindset. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not,
Mm-mm.
but it walks through. Basically, it's a group of Navy SEALs that got together and said, "This is how you get through SEAL training," and they put it into more business and practical terms.
I'm sure it's all about controlling your thoughts.
Absolutely, and it's just like breaking not those tasks like you're talking about, those big projects. What can I do right now? What can I control right now to get where I'm trying to go? And because I can't control the big picture, I couldn't control putting a book together in one day. It took a course of a year to do that. And it took one word being written at a time and then putting all that together. And then you look up and you're like, hey, I've got this part.
Come aware, analyze. That's what
Exactly.
them seals.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool, dude. I mean, I'm into nutrition and, feel called to let others do that too. It's not the only thing I'm focused on, but I wouldn't know how to fast. How would I fast if I would want to fast? And what would you recommend to somebody that's done it? Looking at somebody like me that, dude, you can never have enough clarity. I don't care who you are, but whenever I think you get in our positions and people watching and listening that have a higher calling, like clarity's everything. If you want to be inspired and motivated, it's the days you have clarity.
Yeah.
So like seeking clarity constantly is a big deal for me. And fasting's definitely something I'd be willing to do if I could wake up clear every day. So like would it be a 3-day fast, 21 day, go the full 40?
I've never done a full 40. The easiest thing to do, and I know that's probably not in your vocabulary because easy is not something that you probably want to start with. But the easiest thing to do that people forget about, like intermittent fasting, like you already do that naturally.
Right.
Because you're going to sleep every night. Even if
Right.
you're only sleeping 6 hours, you went 6 hours without eating.
A lot of people don't know breakfast spells break fast.
Yeah, that's I put that in the book.
You'd be surprised how many people don't realize that that's what that means.
Yep. And that's where anybody that asks on that hasn't done it before, like trying to go 24 hours without sustenance with the way that we currently eat
in our environment, everybody around us.
Exactly. And everywhere you go, there's food. You're going to smell food when you go anywhere you go. If you go to Walmart, even if you're in the gym, you're going to be next to a fast food restaurant or something, that smoke's going to be coming out. You're going to smell the burgers or whatever it is. It's all around you all the time. So 24 hours is difficult in and of itself.
I think that's already a sign though that your level of awareness is like, whew.
Oh yeah, you notice it.
Because I'd be dieting for like bodybuilding shows. I could smell a freaking Cheeto in my house, bro. I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah, it's that heightened awareness, and then that's where the discipline kicks in. You got discipline. Okay, I know it's there, but I ain't taking.
Isn't that a big part of fastings? Whenever you start having those cravings, though, that reminds you of what calls you back to your purpose of doing it.
Yep, and it draws you back to like the way Jesus ordered. When he was talking about this, he says, when you fast, and then he gives instruction on fasting, and he says, when you pray. So he's talking about them in an orderly fashion. So fasting first and then our prayer doesn't mean that you can't pray without fasting, but the way he's addressing it was because of the way the Pharisees were putting it out there. Like, oh, look at me, I'm fasting. And he says, well, if you got
Isn't it
this
funny
wrong,
how anything can, we were just talking about this a couple days ago, and I was thinking about it before you came, but how anything can be good or bad. Anything.
You can
sex, fasting, it doesn't matter. Money, all the beautiful things in life. Our tongue, it can be beautiful or it can be bad.
Yep.
And there's a positive and a negative to everything. And that's the first thing is becoming aware of that. Even fasting, tithing can be bad. I mean, dude, it's all about the heart at the end of the day.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so cool, man. But I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
It's like a conversation, man. I'm not.
No, you're good with that. Well, I mean, just kind of piggybacking on what you said, like what did Jesus say about the greatest commandment? He said to love the Lord your God, and he put He put 4 things out there, but they're pointing at 3 things. He said to love the Lord your God with all your heart. That's the central purpose of us, and it's soul, mind, and strength, and that's body, mind, spirit. Like
Well,
all
that's
3 of
how I
those
teach,
things.
dude.
Yeah.
Like my logo is an upside down Y. We change from the upside down, inside out.
Yep.
Spirit to intellect, mind, and then physical body.
Yep.
And then I teach that to people. Like, realize when you're reacting, you're going right opposite. You're choosing physical. Then you might think about it, and then you're praying to God, asking why you are where you are and what's going on.
Yep.
And it's just like we got it completely backwards.
Yep.
And I mean, even knowing that, I still find myself doing
Oh,
that from time to time
yeah,
when
I'm
flesh kicks in.
they call me quick-witted and sarcastic because I will spout off in a heartbeat when you say something. I've got something to come back with on a regular basis. We actually, because I didn't know you had the podcast, and the first thing that my wife saw, I probably won't even mention it, was the little clip of you talking about taints.
Yeah.
And she's like, "This is who you're going to talk to?" I said, "Yeah." And then I showed a bunch of people that I know that know me really well, and they're like, "Oh, y'all are gonna get along great."
Yeah. You know, and that's what I love about the podcast is because I feel like the nutrition and training and exercising and the business side of things, it just gets so serious. But then, you know, the podcast kind of like my outlet for people to either like me or you don't. And then, you know, it just creates that. And then ultimately, like, get people like you in here that have no idea who you are, maybe over here in the Hattiesburg area, much less you wrote a book and then
Yeah.
you know, they're influenced by you. And so now we're spreading the kingdom, dude, at the end of the day.
That's it.
But a lot of people think it's because you want to be seen. And that's what sucks, dude, is I hate being seen. My biggest link right now, weakness, is putting out the
Yep.
content. I hate it.
Yep.
But it's worthless if I don't.
Yep.
So, like, even showing, like, you were talking about your kids eating well, like the other night, we're filming our kids eating and what they're eating because we do that every day, but we just take it for granted that we know these things. And there's only one way to lead others this day and age. And that's where social media to me can just be so powerful. But then, you know, it's just like the fear in my head comes in that people think you're boasting or showing my kids eat this.
What's the mentality? And you just have to remind yourself that, like, I know what my mentality is. I know why. And that's that humility factor.
Right.
And you show that because, like, that was the same thing with us. Like, one of the TikTok things, which I'm not a big social media guy either. But my son, he was like, "Well, look, if you're going to get into this, we need to start filming workouts and stuff." And I'm like, "No, we don't. Like, I'm not." He's like, "No, we're going to do this." I'm like, "Well, you're going to be in them too." And so that's where we started all that. He did all the stuff because I'm not very good with all that stuff. But then the more we did that, and then we were getting interaction from people, I'm writing that book at the time. And then when the book is finished, I'm like, there's a message here that needs to be shared, and it's not mine. Like I've said multiple times, I've just been called to steward it, and I'm going to steward it to the best of my ability. And if this is the way that I can do that, then I'm going to do it. And I'm going to put everything out there in front, and I'm going to pray the Lord that I don't do anything to mess it up. That's the only thing that I'm going to ask. God, please don't let me mess this up. Let your message go forth, and whoever it needs to reach, that's where it needs to be.
That's where I think my biggest weakness is like I do it all right, and then I get some momentum, and then I'm like, stiff arm. God, I'm Paul. You know, not like boastfully, but like just being real.
Yeah.
Because you start feeling good, you got momentum. I was listening to a book this morning that was talking about like progress is like the secret is like most people do not understand how big of a motivator progress is for your teams and all. So like even getting your teams productive and having progress, that's like you'll notice they're happy to come to work and all. But like normally when that tends to happen, I'm like, what can I do next?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, it's a constant battle. We just did they wanted to do a book signing. We did a book signing Sunday night in Macomb. And they had all these plans and stuff, and it was awesome. Just a small intimate thing. There's probably 20 something people there, and just read an excerpt from the book, live Q&A kind of deal. Had some, light refreshments and stuff.
20 something people, man.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
People like me would be all discouraged if 20 people showed up.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I sat there and I was like, well, this person wasn't here, or they invited this person. I'm thinking that way. And then when I got done, I was like, why are you thinking about that? Like, celebrate the ones that were there, because your purpose is you're supposed to spread this message. They heard it. Yeah, they heard it. It doesn't matter that this one didn't, because there's no benefit to that. You're just wasting your thought on that.
Right.
Focus on the ones that did hear it and what they're going to do with it. And some of those were, they're clients that I work with in the gym now, and I'm getting a chance to talk about this with them and work out in addition to that. And they're seeing the physical results, but I'm like, there's more to it than just physical results.
Isn't it so, man?
Yep.
And that's what I try to tell people, like, you're worried about diet and exercise, and I am too for you, but God, it's so one-dimensional. Like, that's just a very basic foundation of what this does for you.
Yep.
Because if you can follow a diet and exercise your body, you honestly can do anything. And that's where I just want people to understand, like, we got to go into the mind first, because the mind controls the physical body and the senses and the cravings. So we got to get control of our mind, because that's how we really change. And that's like what my calling is now, not to talk about me, but it's just cool to meet you, man, because I feel like you get that. You wrote a whole book about it. So I don't think you ever told me how to fast, though. I cut you off.
we fall in all kinds of stuff. The easiest thing to do is an
Because I'm going
intermittent
to do it,
fast.
bro.
Yeah, intermittent fast is the easiest way to start. And then you take an intermittent
All
fast
right, but I need, what's the next step?
and extend it.
3 day?
3-day.
Because we can kill the cancer cells. That's what
everybody's
says.
saying that.
What's the truth on that?
I haven't. I've looked at both sides research wise on that. There's some that say that's possible, or some that doesn't. I'm sticking to the very simplistic nature of it. If you're looking for clarity, you're looking for that spiritual connection.
That would be my reason.
Exactly. Because ultimately that the spiritual connection for me is the most important thing. If I'm not connected to God the best way possible, then my mental clarity doesn't matter.
Nor do I think disease could live in you, bro. I mean, that might be a bold statement, but
it's if you're
disease is disintegration.
Exactly. Disease. If everything's clean, there's nothing to be dirty in there.
I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but disease literally means dis-ease. And if I'm with God and I'm clear and I'm focused on Him, to me, that's right opposite of disease.
That is exactly right. And there's some, I actually talked about this Sunday night with the book signing. A 72-hour, like, if you really think about the biblical principle, they didn't eat 3 square meals a day in the Bible. They ate when they had the opportunity to eat. And generally speaking, that came out to about once a day. And if it was once a day, there is some evidence that it was actually every 3 days that they would eat 1 meal and not eat.
Wow.
And then you're talking about, so 72 hours, 1 meal, 72 hours, 1 meal. They walked around barefoot almost everywhere they went. So they were grounded, which we don't really talk about that very much anymore. We've got shoes on all the time, staying on concrete. There's some sense to that too.
You got a grounding mat?
I've got grounding sheets on my bed.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I've got the grounding sheets on my bed.
It's plugged into your ground?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I've got that too. But I would start, anybody that hasn't done it, I'd start with that. Like, try to do a 16-8 and do 16 hours fasted, 8 hours eating. And then once you get to that 16 hours, do it from dinner to breakfast. You can push 16 hours in there really easy because you sleep in 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
And then once you hit the 16-hour mark, you can sit there and go, you know what, I can go further. And then take it to 24. And when you look at 24, you go, you know what, I could go further. And just let that develop itself. Don't try to say, I'm going to do 72 hours. And then when you hit 24, you fail. All you did was frustrate yourself. I'm gonna take this little chunk at a time, these little micro goals, even with a fast. And you may look up and 3 days have gone by, 5 days have gone by. And I've never gone beyond. I haven't done a full fast for 21 days. Like, I did a modified Daniel fast for 21 days, which is just fresh fruits and vegetables and water. But I know the clarity that came from that, not having all that other junk in my life. I've a friend of mine that's in the church now, since we've been talking about this.
So you ate no animal protein?
No, not during that 21 days.
Did your gains leave you, man?
Oh, yeah.
But there again, you're doing it for clarity.
Yep. And I've done that again one other time, not strictly, but reduced down to minimal protein as far as animal protein is concerned. And I was really just trying to lose some extra weight just to prove that I could do it in a certain amount of time. And I lost like 27 pounds in about a 30-day period, but I lost a lot of strength. But I've gained that back at the weight that I'm at now. So then I was able to put the stuff back properly and get it all back in order and alignment.
So you personal train some as well?
Yep. Working with clients, personal training. Some of them working through nutrition stuff, things of that nature. So yeah, I just love, like I said, influence is influence. Opportunity to influence people for the positive to ultimately put the gospel in front of them. I'll take any opportunity that I get.
I'd love for you to try my app out, dude. You could set their macros or goals based on their diet types, assign their workouts, have your own community,
Okay.
even if it was just for your church or whatever you're doing it in or your clients in the gym. But that's what we've been working on for a while, is really building that tool set
Yeah.
that would cross all the bases and truly show people how to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw, I think I saw a post on Facebook about that. I
Yeah.
wanted to look into it.
Yeah, dude. You could try it out for
Yeah.
free. And I'm working on getting it on the App Store where you can literally download it for free. Because right now, the way you have to do it, you got to go to my website and you got to put in credit card information to get the trial. I hate that. It's kind of sleazy, but it's not charging anybody. But I'm going to cut that step out to where I can literally just say, hey, man, go try it for free.
Okay.
Because,
Cool.
I believe you got to give to get.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is a tough thing for anyone to do. And so, having that one less roadblock, like, to do that, I think will grow, like, for the more basic person trying to start a healthy
Yeah,
lifestyle.
absolutely.
So, dude, what's your day to day look like as far as like preaching, personal training? You've already written the book, so
A typical day, guess it depends on what day of the week it is. I'm usually in the restaurant 40 hours a week. So right now I'm working mostly daytime hours for that. I'm in the gym by 5:30 with clients. I leave there, go straight to the restaurant. When I leave the restaurant, I go back to the gym with my son. He and I work out together. And then I'll spend time working on any kind of follow up that I need to do with the clients that I work with. Any kind of content posting a lot of stuff about fasting right now because it is a Lent season, leading up to Easter. So I've been talking a lot about that on TikTok. So I do content in the evenings,
how
and
long does it take you to do your content?
oh, it's bare bone basic. It's a 60-second video. Most of the I sat down and do on my days off. I'll sit down and do most of the research, and then all I got to do is plug it into creating the content itself. And all I'm doing is recording directly from my phone, sitting there at a desk. Nothing fancy right now, but I've actually got a lot of interaction with that. A lot of direct messaging and comments on it, and so it's been a really good tool that I was originally against because I'm not a big fan of all of it, but being able to encourage people in their own personal journeys with this, and having that opportunity to do this is inspire other people. So that generally day to day, that's kind of what the day looks like. And then you want to make sure that you're always. My wife and I get up early together at 4. She gets up earlier. She gets up at 3:15. She's in the gym and she gets home by about 4:15 ish or so. So we spend time doing our morning quiet time and things like that together. And then I'll leave to be in the gym by 5:30. And so yeah,
So
so
she's a beast too, man. I mean, she's in the gym that early.
she's trying to. She's
Is that so when y'all stay with kids?
no, they're old enough. She likes the quiet that time of morning because there's not a lot of people. She's actually her sister has gotten into and then fell out of being in the gym regularly, and so she kind of encouraged her and been going with her to get her back on track too. So just another opportunity to help somebody else out in that facet.
Well, cool, man. How can people get your book? Because I saw you'd written one, but I didn't really research how I could get it, and I should have, but I didn't. So, how could people get a copy like you've blessed me with today?
It is available on Amazon. You can also direct message us through this. It's on the TikTok shop as well. Just another avenue there, and you can directly message us through the Citizen Soldier Coaching website. And you can get copies of it there as well on our homepage.
Citizen Soldiers, dude. That's a cool name. I meant to tell you that. Looks cool too. Did you design all that?
Well, yeah. My son and I came up with it together. So yeah.
You and your son seem tight, man.
Yeah, that's my buddy. He's
And he's 16?
no, he's 14.
Oh, okay.
6'1", 170 pound, 14 years old. He's going to end up being I'm 6'3". I think he's going to end up being about 6'5" when it's all said and done. 6'4" at the lowest, so he's gonna
And he's
pass me.
lifting?
Lifting, he's actually got a black belt in Hapkido. He got a black belt at 13. He was one of the youngest in the to go through epic martial arts over there in Macomb and get his black belt. So
Do you do any training?
I'm not like that. No, that was something that he started doing when we started homeschooling, and we wanted to make sure they were involved in extracurricular stuff. So my daughter dances. She does ballet and stuff. So she does all them point shoe things, and she's incredible at that. And he got into Hepketo and started when he was 7 and advanced through the ranks. And he tested out for his black belt last year. And
What'd you say to the stereotype of homeschool kids are weird?
they are. Mine are. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's like anything else, man. You got a different cross section of humanity. It's just, I think there's just a stigma around that when it comes to
I mean, I
homeschooling.
agree.
I think the beauty of it for us is, like, for my daughter, there's some very specific things that she has goals for educationally, and I don't have a school system telling me what she has to do. I can program her with what she wants to go do. My son's the same way. Like, he's interested in kinesiology. He wants to learn about marketing. Well, they're not going to teach him that in public school, but I can, and we've got the textbooks to do it. And he's already going to be going through college level coursework as a sophomore in high school. So there's some benefit to it for us.
Do they have cell phones?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they've got their own phones and post on TikTok. That we've got a good group, a homeschool association, so they just had prom this past weekend. We chaperone prom, so they got to they go do all the same things everybody else does. There's basketball programs.
Dude, I think kids are weird if they're glued to their phone.
That
I mean, that's what's weird to me. Like, you
Staring-
can't even. I mean,
staring
I'm
at
not
a-
just giving that a stereotype, but literally cannot give you hold a conversation.
the good thing is they spend a lot of time on their phones, but they have the social mechanism.
Right.
My son, my oldest son, he's a little bit more reserved when it comes to that, but he's identified it without anybody telling him. He's like, he'll tell me every now and then, Dad, I went up and talked to this dude today, and he's wanting accountability for it. Like, and he wanted accountability in the gym. Now he's trying to pick.
6'1".
Yeah.
That's wild, dude.
Yep.
So, do you have any plans for any other book writings? You feeling led to do that? What's next for you? What you got in the pipeline?
I mean, I've got thoughts, but I don't have anything in concrete. There's been some ideas. I've been going through the book of Proverbs a lot lately and the book of Ecclesiastes and just kind of pondering wisdom and life in general. And so there's a lot of thoughts that I write down in addition to that, and just more generalized, not necessarily nutritional based or foundational to fitness, but just life in general. So there may be something along those lines that go along with that wisdom. I did a message series recently from Proverbs and Psalms, kind of lining up where the Psalms and Proverbs called there's wisdom in worship. And our wisdom actually informs our worship, where our wisdom comes from, and ultimately what we're going to worship. And so I've got a little bit of content there that I'm considering putting into words similar to this, but right now I'm just going to enjoy where I'm at and see where the Lord wants us to go with this. We've got some plans to go and do some book signings in my hometown back in Raymond. Hadn't been home in a long time, and there's some interest there. And
Dude, you should do one at the gyms.
that would be fun. I'd love to do something like that too.
We need to get plugged back in there and do the Evo nights and like make this a part of it. I think that'd be cool.
Shoot, we'd love to do that.
I got one more question for you. I've been meaning to ask you. Is like, how do you witness to people like in public? Because you're not a pushy guy, and you've never came off like that towards me. But I think that's a stigma towards like Christianity. How do you do it? Is it just a discernment you have that you can kind of ease into it and not just go hard on somebody? And because I just feel like in my spirit that's like a big problem people have is like when they've been witnessed to, it's just been hellfire and brimstone, and
Yeah.
and it's almost made fun of now.
Well, the mentality that I keep is that the word disciple in Scripture, when Jesus talks about his disciples and he's discipling his disciples, you have to ask yourself a question: what is he actually doing? Well, he's influencing them. So, like, we have this new, I guess you call it a new term, influencer in our society that's kind of been borrowed from that word, because the word disciple literally means influencer. And what's influencing me is going to come out of me. no matter what I do. And so the conversations that I get the chance to have in so many instances are just natural flow conversation. And then when somebody's coming to me with a problem, it turns into a gospel opportunity. And it's always on the forefront of my mind. Do I have the ability to give them a piece of spiritual wisdom in this that can tie them back to the only thing that can solve all of these problems? Because if I believe that, it's got to come out of me. If I don't believe it, it's not going to come out of me. I believe in the gym. I believe in being in the gym. I believe being consistent is important. I believe in discipline. I believe in, your story matters. I tell everybody that all the time because there's so many people that I meet. They're like, well, I'm just, like I said, Lord, I'm not anybody special. And when I say that, I don't mean I'm not anybody special. I just mean I'm no different than anybody else. But like you said, we're all special. Some of us just haven't identified what it is that God's pulling us towards. And when I get a chance to sit down and have that conversation, I mean, even in interviews, with my role as a director, you sit down with somebody and it's like, I just want to hear your story. And they're like blown away, like, well, you want to hear my story? This is a job interview. It's like, this is the job interview. I want to hear your story. Like, I'll share my story. God is interwoven throughout that story. Here's how God has been gracious to me all along the way. Now, you don't have to believe what I believe, but here's why I believe what I believe. And I want to hear your story. And then I get a chance to interact with them in their story and like look at them and say, dude, do you not realize like what you just said? Like, look what God did with this piece and this piece and this piece. And I get a chance to just point that out to somebody in just a natural inclination and flow of conversation. And those things happen all the time. And like you said just a minute ago, it comes with discernment, kind of looking at people and knowing where you are and knowing what God's trying to do. And God's intended purpose is that all would be saved. Whether the church wants to proclaim that or not, doesn't mean that all will be, but his intent is for all to be. And he's going to give everybody the free will option, whether or not they're going to choose him or not. And I'm going to be a part of giving them every reason to choose him. If I can be a part of that, I'm going to be a part of that.
You're a G, bro. God's the source.
That's it.
Michael Wilson's the plug. Where can they find you at on social media? You're on TikTok, I heard.
Yeah, TikTok, citizen.soldier.coaching. We've got a page on Facebook, Citizen Soldier Fitness as well. And then any of my personal accounts, just Michael Wilson. I'm on there also.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming out,
man,
sharing your book with us, your story.
It's been a blessing to be able to be with you, man. Like I said, if God puts something out in front of me, I'm going to follow and see where it goes.
I got my green eggs and oatmeal over there. I'm thinking about skipping them. I need clarity. Well, thanks for coming, dude. Hopefully you'll come back.
Shoot, yeah, anytime. I enjoyed it, man.
I'm looking forward to talking to you after we stop, and I think we can work together in the future and, be a hero to the same people, dude. But in the meantime, thanks for coming out, and till next time, bro.
Appreciate you.